Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with you. Blessed are you among women, and blessed is the fruit of your womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Saint Rita, pray for us. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Okay, so good afternoon. This afternoon we are going to continue with cultural differences, which talks about both the combination of national or regional culture and also corporate culture. No? So last time we have discussed low and high context cultures. So this time we are going to explore more on Hofstede's theory on culture differences. Okay, let me just share my screen. Mentioned, huh? Okay. So these are just some of the examples of Hofstede's classifications of national culture. Let me just expand. Okay. So Hofstede actually developed four, but later on it became five, no? Very similar to how theories are made. No, when we talk about theories, mga good class, over time they change, no? Either na-omit dira nga parts silang theory or na-improve because they have discovered new information. It's pretty normal especially in research, no? Because an example of that, when I did my study, I took the tourism development theory of Butler, and at first, pag 1997 niya nga theory, kamay raman to ang content sa levels of tourism development. And then when it was revised in 2001, nadungagan na siya og pila ka book scales, no? And it's also the same with Hofstede's classification or theory on national culture. It was four, no? Then gidungagan niya og usa para lima na. We will discuss first the four original classification of Hofstede, so which includes individualism, power distance, uncertainty avoidance, and masculinity versus femininity. So actually in the workplace this is really prominent, no? I've experienced where I'm more on an individualistic kind of person. Although I do appreciate the help and collaboration, but I don't do that all the time. Like I'd rather work alone. No, I can be able to function better as an individual. But it depends. No, if I have competent people with me, then I'm willing to work with them. No, but if I feel nga all the burden will be put onto Mira because they depend on me alone, usually I just, I leave the project and I do it myself. Like, muna siya. So in the workplace, it's really evident. It's not just in our culture nga makita nimo outside of the workplace, but these following classifications are there. You have individualism versus collectivism. You have power distance. Apil po na, no? Power distance is when how you feel towards authority. Like, dili ba ka mo question og authority masking sayop na because you're afraid, or you question authority all the time because you feel it's unjust. Okay, so na po na, no, power distance. Also have uncertainty avoidance, no? How well can you do with risk? Like, do you avoid risk or do you tolerate it? Or are you a risk taker? Are you comfortable with going out of your comfort zone? And then masculinity versus femininity, refers to how we stereotype or we see people based on their gender. No, because you're a woman, you're not allowed to do this. It's unfeminine, or dili siya pleasant to look at, o mga ingana, no? Or because you're a man, you're not allowed to be soft or sensitive because, no, that is not what usually the traditional man would do. So those are just some of the examples of classification of national culture. Makita na to na siya sa society all the time. We may not be able to like see it automatically jud dayo, no, because especially among Gen Z, they tend to bahala na sila, they're like well jay paki, focus sa self. Pero actually it does happen, no, not just in society but even in the workplace. So evident rin siya. Siguro when you reach this age, like sa ako, I don't know lang, no, kay not all people, like pars po sa ako nga in the early 20s who are very socially aware of people na uban nga wala sila pakialam because they just do what they do. But sometimes you reach to a point wherein siguro pud appeal pud ana nga because I have this strong sense of like justice, as well as when you're a feminist, you usually see something wrong with the people around you, and that's what you usually see when you deal with other people, and it's really evident, no. Na experience actually nako ni siya tanan kani siya, siguro not sa kuha lang but with the people that I deal with. So let's start first with the individualistic versus collective society. So when you talk about individualistic and collective, na iwan people nga they can really work well alone, and there are other people that can really work well if they are in a team. So in individualistic societies, like you see Western countries, no, American, European culture, wherein this person tends to focus on his or her own self-interest. Competition for resources is the norm, and those who compete best are rewarded financially. So for them, if this does not benefit me, like I will not do it. Mariana ba? That's for the individualistic societies. Or for example, if I feel that ma-drag down rako, or kana I will be in an inconvenient situation, then I will just do things alone. Usually I am more towards an individualistic kind of behavior because I feel nga I am not satisfied with the work if I depend on others, and I tend to stress out on very small details. No, I only tend to work collectively as a group when I see that others are also working, like they do their fair share of the work as well. Like it's not just ikaw ratanan, but there are also other people who would help you, or open to do things with you. So mo pa na siya, no? I cannot truly say nga really individualistic jud ko. Like it's more on half and half. Like I can work well with a team if it depends on the people I work with, but if I see that this kind of project does not benefit me and also will only bring me stress, I'd rather do it myself, no. I encountered that one when I was a student sa graduate school. Like, of course, no, we're expected to be very, very independent, very responsible because we're already, like, some of us are teachers in other universities, and all my other classmates, like, most of my classmates are actually teachers, are into teaching, and then, but there are hospitality and tourism graduates. And I have other classmates who have worked in the hotel and have been to the States. I have classmates who are tourism officers, and sometimes there's a part where I really enjoyed collaborating with them doing projects, but there was also one time where I felt nga ako ra siya nga asikuan ra ana, and that's what the part guy said nga, well, I'm just going to do this one individually. Okay, so in individualistic societies, mga good class, they feel nga, if I compete, if I do this for myself, I would be rewarded handsomely, and there's nothing wrong. Actually, siguro on your part, you would think nga it's kind of selfish, but it's what do you call this? Hunt or be hunted kind of world, no, where naa ka sa mayroon sila nga family ra gud ta diri tanan good, na that does not really apply in actual work. Well, it's okay to have like professional relationships, or you help each other out from time to time, but at the end, no, if you really want to to excel in the workplace, no, sometimes you have to tend your own. Mara jud na siya. Okay, because if you rely on others, selfish kay kung makakuha, but again, it's not selfish, no. If you rely on others, manggod, you will never grow. You'll never become independent. You'll never risk. So you do what you think is best for you, no. No, advice sa dayon. So that's individualistic societies, no. Countries like Australia, Canada, UK, and US, they tend to have strong individualistic societies. Like they do things on their own so that they get promoted, or for example, they would be given incentives, and that's okay, no. They're more, again, if you go back to high context, low context, very kuan kay sila. Kanang they're more into skills and competence. Mo na mo siya needed karon, no. Real world is tough. Wala na compassion karon. Competence jud ta. So next is collectivist societies. So ties among individuals are more important than individualism. For them, they value personal relationships more rather than, individual nga achievements or individual nga merits. So business is conducted in a context of a group where everyone's views are strongly considered. Group is an all-important as life is fundamentally a cooperative experience. Conformity and compromise help maintain group harmony. So in here, usually these are intended for Asian countries, and they felt nga in the company, they want to feel everyone as like a family. Again, red flag jud kayo na siya. I'm not saying nga dili na pwede nga wala jay marag personal behavior na okay ra man basta as long as you learn to balance it. But red flag jud na siya sa work class if mo jud ang dungog nga we're like a family here. Red flag jud na sa work kay, well, sometimes that could be an excuse to abuse, no, but take advantage of, people because you're supposed to be a family, or that could be another excuse pod nga to not question authority. Mo na siya. Kanang masing kabalo ka nga sayop ni or incompetent ni usa ka person, you don't call them out because mahadlo ka because you're a family here. Or yung ana ba? No, that's a red flag, no. Collectivist societies thrive when they do collaborations, brainstorming, meeting of the minds. Pero it comes to kuan na jud, no. Kinahanglan pod nga naapoy individualistic, like a perfect blend of individualistic and collectivist nga kind of culture nga people, like each of them in the workplace, kung ako ang ginahan ko blend, pwede mo na pwede opinionated, no, but a perfect workplace should be a blended individualistic and collectivist nga culture wherein each employee are striving to become their very best version of an employee because they want, like, they compete in a healthy competition jud ba nga dili ingon nga compete mo pero daotanay, like compete mo like ikaw mo atan kag training so that you could be qualified, you could be competent, ang usasad nga ning kamot pod, like all of you are really working towards improving yourself, being qualified and all. And then if there are collaborations or projects, you work together but you don't really depend on each other, like you work with each task pero you help collaborating, kanang may ambag tanan ba, like that's a kind of perfect workplace jud siguro, no, a mix of both. So collectivist is more on like dapat na build tag personal values, relationships with these people, like wala ga matter ang individualism nila, ang ilaha is say view sa laing tao nako, no. Di man siya ako, I will not tell you to, I'm not going to be a hypocrite and tell you nga, we have to be like a family, because that is not what the workplace is. Okay. You have to be competent and you do that on your own. You grow on your own, but you also do collaborations. Like mixture jud na siya. Next is high versus low power distance. Now, I see this all the time, even in the workplace class, no? When you tag high power or low power distance, it's how we, or power distance, it's how we perceive people in authority. Like, are we comfortable with people who are in power, even though nga unjust na or dili na mao, or kon lang, kanang i-question ba nato sila? So, when start with high power distance countries, these societies have substantial gaps between the powerful and the weak. They're relatively indifferent to inequalities and allow them to grow. Now, I don't want to sound political, but have to face the fact. You have to go to Google and even search this. The Philippines has the highest, one of the highest, dili siya the highest nga number one. But still, their their power distance score is very high. It means we do not question people who are in power. And this is not just about politics. You see students to teachers, no? Um, employees to employers. Because, we have this traditional culture now. Now, we don't question those who are in authority because mara namang good siya bastos or insubordination. Even though unjust na siya. When I talk about questioning, dili na because you want to test their intelligence, ha? What I meant about questioning those who are in authority, it means like, for example, you had a meeting and you felt that what was discussed was so inappropriate or, for example, uncomfortable on your part, or you felt nga, it was very unjust. It's not the right thing to do. So you speak up. Like, I felt nga it's not, dili na siya maayong ako, mauna, kaya di ma siya sakto. Yan na ba? Like, naay power ang naa sa ubos, ang subordinate nga mo storya, mo voice out what he thinks nga murag dili sakto. Okay? Para sa puna dira sa to, di ba, nga kanang we're so comfortable with what do you call this? Traditional politicians, we call them trapos, no? Traditional politicians who are corrupt, like kanang, bahala na og kanang kuan, isog bitaw siya lang taon, bahala na kanang corrupt, importante isog bitaw. Like, we don't question people in authority anymore because either we got used to it, which is sad, no? I have an example, but I don't wanna speak up. I have an example, like, I'm used to receiving, like, very low lang jud nga incentives. And then, once nga matagaan kong dako, like, makuan pod ko, like, deserving the ikuan ni. Like, ma-question po na ako kong self, which is sad, no? Because, naging you're used to being treated, what do you call this? Like, you're used to being treated in things nga dili jud dapat ani nimo deserve. Like, you deserve so much more, but because you're used to it, murag kutagaan kag something nga jud sa imuha, ma-shock na lang ka, makalitan ka, because we're so used to keeping quiet, no? I remember there is I'm not really a fan of TikTok when it comes to facts and all. I'm more of a TikTok person for entertainment because it's meant to be an entertainment jud nga app. And then I came across mura siyag skit. Skit is like murag kuan ba. I usually do skits as well, no. Anong skits ka nang murag play nga ginagmay ba or something. And then ang skit ani is kanang ni-visit siya sa balay siyang classmate. Niyang classmate is an Asian or black ba tong household, and then ikasaban siya siyang mama. Di ana dito ang white or ang American nga classmate nga, hala, you just allowed your mother to talk to you, like your that's your room, it's your personal space, dili siya dapat mo kuan nimo, like ana siya na ang mga Americans, diba, like they really question their parents for invading their personal space. Ana din to ang Asian nga classmate niya nga, do not ever question my mother kay patay jud ka. Which is, daghan kay na-correlate sa comments, which is true, di ba? Usually Asian countries or even kanang mga kuan ka sa Middle East or Latina or mga among black communities, like, we have this high regard for authority. Like, mahadlok ta, even sa Asian jud most especially, like, masking we feel nga kanang mo contradict sa ato ang beliefs ang ingon sa tong parents or kinaluluhan, di ta pwede mo what do you call this, makig-argue kay para nila that immediately interprets to us talking back or nagbastos, which is, in other cultures they're not like that, because in other cultures they felt nga if you reason out or if you argue with a person regardless of their age, it means that you want to make a stand or na kay gusto isulti nga mo contradict siyang gisulti, di ba? But in high power distance countries, like, in Asia, it's not like that. No, we really need to have a high regard for authority, and we have to really respect. No, we don't question them. I remember um I had this long rant at home nga I said nga, why am I not allowed to speak my mind? Nga I'm in the right age and then I don't feel nga it was right mo ni mo na. Kay lulo man good nimo good or kanang kuan man good mas hunahuna ang mas magulang pa na sila nimo na nana. So ana no merg in authority Japon those who are older or in higher authority than you don't have a right to say anything, which is sad, no? And you have low power distance countries. So these are societies that have minimal gaps between the powerful and the weak. So example of this are of course Western countries. You see employees questioning their employers if they feel nga, I was not given the right compensation. No, prangka jud yun ang employee. Or for example, it comes to like taxes or income, no, they also speak out. So they have low scores on power distance. So meaning dili dako ang gap between those who are in authority and also katong naa sa like mga subordinates or naa sa ubos. Okay. Like sa tuang taas na jud kayo. Dako na jud kaayo. No, you have to kuan pa. Well, they question, they challenge, but not in violently, but they question inequalities, they demand for sakto nga pagtratar o mga ingana. So muna ang sa mga low power distance countries. Next are so social stratification affects power distance. In Japan, almost everybody belongs to the middle class, while in India, the upper stratum controls the decision-making and buying power. So, amo na siya class, no? Especially in Asian households, no, Asian countries, people in higher power distance countries, they have little to say when it comes to making decisions, even buying power and decision making. Like those in the upper parts, actually mas corrupt pa ganit daw kun ang India compared to the Philippines. Pero that's not a good thing for us, ha. Kung ano Japan, corrupt is still corrupt, no. They have little say what goes around, no, sa ilahang country because those who are in authority makes the decisions. Kaya taas lagi kayo to ang power distance, no. And then in higher distance firms, autocratic management styles focus power at the top and grant little autonomy to lower level employees. So meaning tanan, no, nga naa sa babaw, they have all the control, and katong naa sa lower level, they're only given not only fewer responsibilities but little power. Like they can't do this, they can't do that because wagi pa sa babaw. So yan na. And that is high and low power distance. Next is high uncertainty avoidance. So societies create institutions in high uncertainty avoidance that minimize risk and ensure financial security. Companies emphasize stable careers and produce many rules to regulate workers' actions and minimize ambiguity. Decisions are made slowly because alternatives are examined for potential outcomes. So there are other countries that they are afraid of risk. They would like to plan it out first. They would like to see if the outcome would benefit them. And there are other countries who are very, kanang constantly decide dayon ang ilang government or decide sila into sudden changes, and they have to pressure people under them or societies to accept sudden changes. Okay, so grabe ang ilahang pag-take og risk to uncertainties. No, ang countries like Belgium, France, and Japan, like they have to discern before sila mo decide on taking the risk first. They have to really decide, think about it thoroughly before sila maka-risgo, no, or mo accept og like changes. But in lower uncertainty avoidance nga countries like in India, Ireland, Jamaica, and the US, well, it's not irrational, but they're quick to change, no, kanang from maonin siya last year, let's so dayon on the next year, no? And they're really comfortable, no, especially in businesses, they're really comfortable in taking the risk, no? They make quick decisions compared to countries that have high uncertainty avoidance. Ang nasa low uncertainty, dali ka sila maka-decide. And then, anad na ang people under them nga mag-usab-usab ra siya. Okay? I have an example, no, pero dili man America na nga mo ang school, no. So, our dean is an example of a person that tolerates high uncertainty avoidance. Like, dili siya tuig ang iyahang pag-usab, ha. Per semester, he changes formats, he changes different processes, and he is aware nga people or students that are under the program will have a very tough time adjusting, no? And even ang teachers, dili lang ang students, but he takes the risk because he wants us to adapt to the new trends. And then, ginapasabot na niya daan sa mo ang andam lang jud mo kay basin usab na pud ta og kuan from 6th edition to 7th edition na pud, no? Sometimes it's like that, no? And those are examples of low uncertainty avoidance. There are some countries who are like that, no? Not just in school or sa workplace, but even as a whole, no? And then lastly, we have masculine versus feminine cultures. So, masculine cultures value competitiveness, assertiveness, ambition, and the accumulation of wealth. Kuan jud kay no kanang strong. And I think this is a stereotype, no, because not all, those who are with masculine kind of or men are like this, no. But for countries that have masculine, pasabot nila ani class, it's not about like men or women nga gender, but more on unsa ilang traits. Like very patriarchal kaayo sila og kanang culture nga they're more on assertiveness, ambition, and then assertive ang both buy and lucky, focus on career and earning money, and little care for others. So countries that have masculine cultures are very patriarchal are countries like Australia, Japan, and the US. There are also other Hispanic cultures that display a zest for action, daring, and competitiveness. In business, the masculinity dimension manifests as self-confidence, proactiveness, and leadership. I don't want to self-analyze. Meron na po siyang self-analyze. But when it comes to I'm both a mix of masculine and feminine culture. I like, interdependence on people when it comes to emotions, but I don't thrive on that, meaning regardless if naan ng person or wala, I can still thrive on my own, but I still, like the thought or idea of it. I like feminine things, but when it comes to like non-material things, like career and ambition, I'm more on the masculine side. Kung sa ano pa na siya, I value goals more than other people, which is very unfeminine-like, no? Because if you're feminine, no, you are expected to be nurturing, be caring, aspire for family, which is not really one of my goals, not one of my plans actually. I like the idea of intimate relationships, but I don't like the idea on the establishment of siguro kay at my age pa, pero kung madugay-dugay na mas hindi ma-change akong mind. There are countries who are more into like feminine cultures nga they emphasize nurturing roles, interdependence among people, caring for the less fortunate people, for both men and for women. Very motherly ang approach. So, ang iyang approach is, not for power, not for ambition, not for being competitive or being assertive, but it's just, how do we make facilities so that we can accommodate, people who are very less fortunate, or how do we develop education or welfare of our citizens. So you see Scandinavian countries, actually there are other European countries class nga, they're not patriarchal, like they're open to have women presidents because it's in their culture. They have feminine cultures. They value welfare, nurturing environment more rather than ambition and competition assertiveness, no? Like ingana ang ilaha, no, in other European countries, because for them welfare systems value more than competing with superpower countries. Yung ano, mga low-key kaayo nga countries class, no? Ng mga dili kaayo sila kuan magsaba-saba sa kuan, pero um they have actions, like especially during sa COVID to siya nga babae nga president ha nga murag kita ga start mo pa pag buto sa COVID kuan ta nag-struggle sila kay they were actually prepared na for it, but they were a very small country man pud, pero at least okay. And then this is the fifth one. It was not actually part of the first four, no, kay kani siya is late addition naman to Hofstede's classification of national culture. So he added a fifth dimension, which is the long-term versus short-term orientation. Now, this is really quite common as we see in culture class, because there are other cultures nga it's been with us for so many years now, and there are also other cultures nga magdili kita ka point out if ga-retain ba siya kay gausab-usab siya. Okay, this was not identified in his earlier study, but long-term versus short-term orientation describes the degree to which people and organization defer gratification to achieve long-term success. So, countries with long-term orientation are usually Asian countries, no, and they tend to take the long view to planning and living, focusing on years and decades. So when they plan for the next decade, for the next few years. Like, muna class nga, low kaayo og uncertainty risk ang Asian countries, because they don't want to take the risk right away or change or make decisions right away. Like, they usually plan it and it lasts on decades. Like, if I were to introduce a new teaching to this community, it has to persevere. It has to live. It has to thrive even in a few years. Like, magpadayon na Japon siya. Diba? So, mo na ang long-term orientation, no? Long view to planning and living, which will still last for decades, for years. While ang short-term orientation is, we plan right away, and sometimes our way of life changes on what is currently happening. Like the US and other Western countries, they are like this. Like, they tend to provide short-term plans for now, but they don't really actually make, like, kanang long view to planning how you live for the next few years. But this is not all the time. There are also other Americans out there, or Westerners, who are innovators, no, who are also has this foresight when it comes to the future. Pero usually they should know, ang ginalantaw is Asian households. Okay. So what is the effect of culture in organizations? For national variables, no, maka-apekto si culture on national, socio-cultural, cultural, attitudes, individual and group employee job behavior. So for national variables, so even the economic system, the legal system, political system, physical situation, the technological know-how, these are affected by culture. Under sociocultural, you have religion, you have education, language. In cultural variables, our values, our norms, and beliefs are also affected by culture. In the workplace, or sa kuan, in our attitude, culture can affect our work, our individualism, how we change things, no, our time, and even materialism. And then sa workplace, your motivation can be affected by your culture, productivity, commitment, and even ethics. So let's try to see the different cultural differences among Latinos, North Americans, and the Japanese. Mag-representative lang sa kung ano. So, for Asians, so usually Japanese, emotional sensitivity is high valued. While for North Americans, emotional sensitivity is not highly valued. For Latin Americans, it's still the same, no, but it's not as high as the Japanese or Asians, how they value emotional sensitivity. Latinos are still sensitive when it comes to emotions, but not as high as Asians. Okay. So for the Japanese, they tend to hide on their emotions, while Americans are more on very straightforward. They like to deal with their emotions straightforwardly or impersonally. While Latinos are very passionate, like they're not straightforward, but they're more of like a romantic, no? Or if they get angry, like they do it passionately, like not like in a straightforward robot kind of voice, no, but they express it passionately. Um, Japanese are more on subtle power plays or conciliation, while in North American, litigation not so much as conciliation. Latin Americans have great power plays, they make use of weakness. For the Japanese, they are very loyal to their employer because for them, the employer takes care of the employees. Muna very low ang ilahang very high ang power distance nila because they value people in authority. In North Americans, lack of commitment to employer, breaking ties by either if necessary, like they can even, resign or quit then and there, no? If they felt nga they're not comfortable anymore. And Latin American are more loyal to their employer, which is usually family raman, no? Pamilya raman po nila. For the Japanese, face saving is crucial. Decisions often basis of saving someone from embarrassment. So remember, very low context ang ang Japanese para nila before ka mag-decide on something, dapat ka nang dili siya makakuba sa iyang reputation, palayo siya from embarrassment. So mo na ang mga Japanese, no? And then for North Americans, decisions are made on cost-benefit basis. Like, if it does not benefit me, or for example, if it puts me in any inconvenience, like, I don't care if someone will get embarrassed or fired, no? Face saving does not matter. Ilaha jud is, kuan jud, no? Walay ilhan na, walay kuan. While for Latin Americans, very similar to Asians, or the Japanese, face saving is crucial in decision making to preserve honor and dignity. Like for them, reputation really matters. For the Japanese, decision makers openly influenced by special interest, while North American are not influenced by special interest but often not considered ethical. Sorry. So for Latin American, execution of special interests of decision expected or condoned. For the Japanese, they are not argumentative and they are quiet when right. So when they feel that they are right, they're not going to invest a lot of time going to argue that they are right. They're just going to keep quiet. For North American, they are very argumentative, like they like to argue, makigdog show jud sila, even if they're right or wrong. But impersonal. Ang Latin American, right or wrong, mo argue po siya pero very passionate, like lahi ang display of emotions niya compared to may gamay pa nga composure ang Americans. For the Japanese, what is down in writing must be accurate or valid. And then for North American, great importance given to documentation is evidential proof. So ginana sila class nga na ay kontrata, everything is written in black and white. Dapat na siya proof. For Latin Americans, they're very impatient with documentation as obstacle to understanding general principles. So para nila like, they don't care much about formalities, no, kaya they don't have the patience for paperwork. And then, for Japanese, step-by-step approach to decision making has to be a process, and you have to earn the trust of the people who are also, transacting with you. But for North Americans, methodologically organized decision making, and it has to undergo certain methods, although like contracts and all, although they don't really have high regards to, building relationships. Sila lang is I make a transaction with you, sign the contract, and then that's it. For Latin Americans, they're very impatient, they're very impulsive, and they make decisions right away based on what's at the moment, diba? So for the Japanese, good of group is the ultimate aim. So for the benefit of all, no. But for the North American, good of the individual, very individualistic. Ang Latin American, same sa Japanese, no, or sa Asian nga, para sa kadaghanan, like, dili lang para sa ako, ah. And then, ang Japanese, cultivate a good emotional, social setting for decision making. Get to know decision makers first, establish trust with them before, mag-make of decision. For North Americans, decision making is very impersonal. They avoid involvements, avoid personal relationships or any conflict of interest. Sila lang is, this is my matter of business with you, then mora na. For Latin Americans, personalism is necessary for good decision making. Like, again, like the Japanese, I have to establish trust. I have to make sure that, I'm comfortable with you when I make decisions. So, muna ang sa mga Latin Americans and Japanese. Ang North Americans, wala lang. Basta nalay contract and then we meet, we discuss on things, then we're done. No? More na ilaha. Okay, so that's it for cultural differences. We are going to have a few minutes break. So it's already 3:22. Just be back by 3:50.
350, dam?
Oo,
Okay,
3:50,
dam.
50.